I'm going to flatten that image. Now we're going to add the sky. What you're going to do is go to your library and you're going to find the sky. And I guess I got a couple choices here. I kind of like to match the sky that I see so it's not that aggressive. So I can use something like this, or I can use something like this. Now this photo has a built-in reflection. So I'm not going to choose that one because I want to show you how to create a reflection. So I'm going to select this sky, double click it, and it's going to open it in another layer. So I want to copy that layer, Command A for select all, and Command C for copy. So you want to select all here, Command A on Macintosh, and then you want to copy it. And then I'm going to paste it. Now it's a different color space, so it's going to convert it to the working space, which is sRGB, which is fine. Now it's right dab in the middle of your screen. How am I going to enlarge this? It's called the transform tool. Command T, or if you go to under edit, you go to free transform. Now when I make it larger, I can pull this and make it larger, but I want to pull it and have it equally spread out. So if I hold the Option Shift key, it will, or the Option key, if I hold the Option key, see how it makes it larger and keeps it dead center. So hold the Option key and make it bigger. Obviously, we don't want the sunset down here, which is right here. We want it higher. First of all, you need to change the mode of this layer to make it come through, right? So if I have it on top like this, you're not going to see the bottom. So if you choose multiply, you can see that the sky will be added behind it. Now all I need to do is match the horizon. And so I'm going to bring this up, and I look at the horizon ends right about here. So I want to bring that horizon up, and I like that clouds right there. Then what I'm going to do, and you might say, okay, yeah, you got clouds there, but here it doesn't look good. So I'm going to take this layer and flip it so it will be a mirror to this. It will mirror the clouds, and we're going to add that into the ocean so it's mirroring what the clouds are. So I'm going to duplicate this layer, the cloud layer again. See this layer right here? I'm going to duplicate it, Control J. Then I'm going to, not instead of multiply, well, I could keep it at multiply. Then I am going to hit Command T, transform it. And what I want to do is flip it, not horizontally, but vertically. And if I pull this down, it will be the exact mirror image of the top. See that? And so now this is reflecting into the ocean. We can control the parameters of that, but that looks pretty good. So what did we do? Let's take the image away. That's what we did. So now you see a little bit of a line here, and we need to get that line out. Actually, if you go in close, you don't really see it. So I'm going to switch layers here because that's the top of the sky here, and that's the bottom of the sky. And I'm going to merge these together actually, so it's one sky. Merge down. This creates it into one layer. And you can see it's one layer. Now we got a problem though. One of the problems is the original sky, look how blurry it is. I'm using the 85 1.8 and I need to match that with this. See, that's a little bit too much detail. And it doesn't really match because if you can see, oh, it's blurry here, but then it's sharp there, that doesn't make sense. So what am I going to have to do? I'm going to Gaussian blur the background so it matches the blurriness of what it actually is. So I select that, I go under filter, I go into blur, Gaussian blur, and I just do it according to how I think it should look. Okay, so right there is pretty cool. I'm going to hit that. And now I have an issue where the problem is this sky is overlapping on her and it looks terrible, and I need to fix that. The problem is if I just simply remove the sky where she is, the tones won't match. Because the sky has these highlights and shadows in it, this has to be reflected. This tone has to be reflected in your subject, and the skin has to match. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a skin tone. I'm looking at her skin. I go, that skin right there looks pretty normal. So what's the color under that sky? Where's the sky under that tone right there? So it looks like this tone right here. So if I select that tone, let's put this back and forth so I could see where that skin is matching up. Looks like around this tone right here. So I'm going to paint this tone on top of the sky so I can get rid of this pattern here. And let me just start doing that. So I've selected this tone right here, and you can make it even, sometimes I make it a little bit lighter than actually it is. And I'm going to get my paintbrush. I've got it at 8%. You can go to 14%. I'm going to simply paint over the area, and you're going to see it's going to remove that sky, but it's going to reflect a tone that's in the sky, and it's going to look natural. Okay, so painting over here, so anywhere where I see that sky, I'm going to paint it out. I'll show you what this looks like on the other layer that I'm painting on, and you'll get the idea of what's actually happening. So you can see the sky right here, right on this rock, so I'm going to paint that out. Now, what's actually happening? What did I just do? This is what I did. I took a tone and I painted it over where that skin is, but see this tone? It matches the tone in my background, so it looks believable. So you're matching the tones. If I made this white right here, it wouldn't match the tone in the sky, and it wouldn't look right. It wouldn't look realistic. This was the hardest thing for me to do, to figure out. And I figured out that you've got to use the same tones that are in your backdrop in your sky on the skin. And so now it looks completely normal. And you got the reflection here, and everything looks matched together. I usually do not use 100% of my sky. So after I do this, I bring it all the way down to 0. And then I just add it. I like to blend my sky with the original sky. I don't have a lot of skies. So if I do a complete swap, after a while people will know, oh, he just has 2 or 3 skies, or he just has, you know, oh, I've seen that sky before. I know he swapped it. But if I'm just adding my sky effects with the given sky, then you can't tell. It's like a new sky every single time. I just like the color of that sky to come through. And so as you can see, as I'm blending it, I'm getting a richer color here. And the less that I blend, the more realistic it's going to look. So I don't go crazy with it. So I'm at about 71% now. And I really like the way that looks. So I'm going to flatten that. Now, to further match the highlights and the shadows, what I like doing is color grading it, meaning I have my color grading tools over here, which, see this, it says blue yellow, purple yellow, brown yellow. So these tone our global adjustments, where in this blue yellow, it puts blue in the shadows and yellow in the highlights across the entire image. So it will match everything. This one will put purple in the highlights, purple in the shadows and yellow in the highlights. This one will put brown in the shadows and yellow in the highlights. This is not really a brownish tone, so I know that last one won't work. So it's between purple and blue. It's already got a lot of purple in it, so I'm going to use blue yellow. You're going to see what it does. It creates a matching tone over across everything. Now you might say, that looks a little bit too yellow. You can adjust it. It starts it at 50%. So I can bring this yellow down all the way to nothing and then just add a little bit of this yellow tone across the entire image to keep it matched. Then I have this blue tone, bring it down to 0. It's at 50%, and then just add a little blue tone to brighten it up. Okay, so I've got that at about 15% too. So I'm just adding a bit of color tone in there to match up my shadows and my highlights, just to sync everything up. And I'll flatten it. You can be aggressive however you want to. You can choose your own colors and swap those out. But those are part of my actions that's included with this, and it works really well together. Now I have a matched highlight and shadow image. I blended my clouds together. The clouds are reflected in the ocean, so you're like, man, that looks like the real deal. My last step is I want it a bit sharpened. And so I'm going to take this action called Crystal Clear. It creates another layer with a high pass layer. And what you do is, you see this little slider? You slide this, it's set at 4.1, which usually works, until you start to see the edges, and that's what it's going to sharpen. If you go too far, it looks weird. You don't want to do that. So you just want to go until you just start to see those edges a bit, and that's what it's going to sharpen. And just want to give it a little bit. How's that? Right up. Should be at least 4. I'm just going to keep it at the default 4. Now you're going to see a difference here. I have another layer here which allows you to adjust the opacity. And you can see that it just tightens up everything. I like this better than the sharpening tool. It just seems to work better. It just gives it that little oomph. Okay? In everything, just gives it that nice sharp feel to it. I shoot in JPEG, and so this little trick adds that little sharpness to it that maybe a raw photo would have. A lot of people ask me, how do you get your images so sharp? This is the action that I use. So I'm going to bring down the opacity of that sharpness just a little bit. I don't like everything at full effect all the time. Now I'm going to flatten it, and that's all I'm going to do in Photoshop. That's how I add a sky. Now I'm going to bring it back into Lightroom. And now, because I color graded it, I put kind of a tone into the highlights and I put a tone in the shadows, I lost a little bit of pop. And because, remember, I also kind of smoothed out the skin or patched it because it was super bright and super dark, and I wanted to even that out. That also lost a bit of pop. So usually when I finish it in Photoshop and bring it back into Lightroom, I try to add a bit of pop back into it by adjusting the tone curve. And I take the lights and I bring it up. You can see how it just adds a bit of pop back into the photo, and I take the darks could bring that down a bit. It looks pretty good there. So just adding that pop back into my photo without using the tonality of it is nice. Also, I can come in here and easily adjust the skin tone. If it looks a bit red, I can go up to saturation here. I could select this tool and I can select the area that I want to bring down. Let's say I want to take some red out of here. I can click where I want to adjust the saturation, and if I move my mouse while clicking down up, I increase the saturation. If I bring it down, I can lower it. I just don't want to make it too red feeling, and take down my saturation just a bit. Okay, right there. So I fine-tuned it in Lightroom, and I love Lightroom for global effects. It's just easier for me to do it this way versus in Photoshop. Everybody has its own methods, but for me, global adjustments are all about Lightroom. I think they do a great job of it.